Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. Here's your host, Morgan Colby and Rick Lemon.
Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. It is March 5th. My name's Morgan Colby. I got Rick Lemon
Holy cow, it's March 5th already?
right across from me. Yeah,
What's up?
per usual. We got a lot to get to in this episode. We're going to talk about regression candidates, and we got a quick question to start the show. Before we jump into that, check out our website at thefantasychampions.com. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram, and like us on Facebook. You can follow us on Twitter at the FF Champs, on Instagram at the Fantasy Champions. Subscribe wherever you listen. Leave a review and share this podcast with your friends. We're actually going to try to make this the actual time that we are supposed to, keep it in.
Yes.
So let's move into a quick question to start the show. Is it possible in 2020, in the year 2020, is it possible to stream wide receivers?
So what I'll say about this is I think it's difficult. However, it is possible for a wide receiver too.
Yeah.
Looking at some of the guys last year.
That's a finer note to put in there, but continue.
Yes. Well, it is important. You can't stream both, I think.
Yeah.
You'll struggle if you try that. But there were some guys like Cortland Sutton.
Okay.
A.J. Brown.
Yep.
DJ Chark.
Okay.
I think there's another one I'm missing too. But those guys all finished in the top 20.
Yeah.
And they were all available in pretty much every single waiver wire all season.
Did you mention Devontae Parker?
I did not. So who finished number 6th,
Right.
I think, among wide receivers.
Mm-hmm.
So those are 4 guys right there in the top 20. So if you do draft somebody, like, God forbid, but let's say you draft Julio Johnson.
Allen Robinson, top 10. Devontae Parker.
Another guy who is in a lot of waiver wires.
DJ Chark.
Yeah, so yeah, it is definitely possible.
John Brown.
You do kind of want like a Hopkins
A big time.
You
You
want
want a
somebody,
big time wide receiver.
correct, but if you want to stream your second wide receiver, it is definitely possible.
So I 100% agree with you. I think in the past we've looked at the running back and the running back and the wide receiver position as positions that you want to draft and you want consistency at. But I think as we move along and offenses change and stuff gets more fluid at the wide receiver position, you can and I want to see if this fluidity continues into next season, because I remember last year and the year before, we knew who the good the good wide receivers were. We knew who they were. Yeah. And now we just don't. And
This year was a little
bit weird, and it was up and down. So I want to see if next year you start to see that difference in, I guess, like seeing top players actually perform at a top level. Like Hopkins half the season didn't even perform well. Yeah. So seeing those players actually play at the level that we know they're capable of, like Michael Thomas had 294 fantasy points in half PPR. There was like 4 wide receivers last year that did that, but the second guy on this list had 233. So it's like to me, I think you're gonna see more guys do that next year, but I think it's becoming more likely and more reasonable to start streaming guys at the wide receiver position. So I would get a wide receiver 1, a big time guy. And if you don't have a wide receiver 2, or you don't have a solid wide receiver 2, a guy that has success, you can get one on the waiver wire. And it's like you see Allen Robinson through 16 weeks be number 10. And Allen Robinson, I believe, was drafted, but Devontae Parker.
He was available though in a lot of leagues.
Right. Devontae Parker was number 11. He's a DJ Chark out there, John Brown. So these are guys you can pick up.
I thought Parker was higher than 11.
Right. But then you saw on a week-to-week basis, like just random wide receivers doing good.
Yeah. Emmanuel Sanders had a big week. I can't go through them all, but there were a lot of guys on a week to week.
He's like, I just can't mentally put you through.
No, I have a bad memory, but
it's fine.
I need it in front of me. But I do remember that Emmanuel Sanders because they happened against me.
Yeah.
But no, there were a lot of guys that would go off like 1 week. Like you could see them have a good matchup, and then boom, they'd get Jamison Crowder or Robbie Anderson, two Jets receivers that week to week.
Yep.
They could go off and get 20 plus points if you knew, they had a good matchup or whatever.
Right.
So that you could plug them in. So yeah, there are a lot of guys that you could do that with.
Right. I think you gotta flow with the fantasy football changes. And
times are always evolving.
Yeah. The game itself is always evolving, and I think you have to evolve with it. If you're just stuck in the old school trend of doing things one particular way, you're gonna lose.
Like drafting your whole team and sticking with it.
Right. Yeah. Which if I did, I would want no. But anyway, yeah, I think it's very possible to stream wide receivers. I think this year is a great year to. I might even take a whole league and just try to do it and see what happens. And see if it actually
just draft like 4 running backs.
Right. And see if it actually works. You know what I mean? Obviously, it's harder because you can't stream 2 wide receivers, but you need at least one really good guy. But if you need a wide receiver at your wide receiver 2 slot and you're struggling with that position, you might be able to get a wide receiver 1 performance off the waiver wire. So we're gonna have to see.
I dropped my phone.
Wow, dude. Wow.
Not the first or the last time.
So anyway, let's move on to our running back and wide receiver regression candidates. We talked about quarterbacks and tight ends on the last show.
Let us talk about this.
Let us talk about this. This is going to get real freaking interesting. We'll start off with the running back position with Mr. Aaron Jones. I love Aaron Jones. I love him a lot. Now, we told you last year he was one of our, not breakouts, but we thought he was going to finish as a running back 1. He ended up finishing at very high through 16 weeks as the number 2 running back in fantasy football. He had 69 targets, 49 receptions, 1,000 rush yards, 474 receiving yards. So he had around 1,500 all-purpose yards. He had 19 touchdowns with a 6.7% rate. It doesn't matter how many yards you get. If you get 19 touchdowns, you're going to be good regardless. So he had the number 1 total touchdowns in all of fantasy football, which is shocking considering there was a man by the name of Christian McCaffrey in the league. So I think for Aaron Jones, it really is just going to be touchdowns. Like that's going to be the category that regresses the most.
So I would love to talk about Aaron Jones because I do not like Aaron Jones at all for 2020.
Okay. We are talking about Aaron Jones, so go ahead.
For one,
it just happens that's what we're talking about.
I don't think agreed. I agree with you. I don't think he's going to finish with 19 touchdowns.
Yeah.
He finishes the number 2 running back in fantasy. Do you see him finishing in the top 5?
No.
I don't even know if he's going to. He'll be like 10th, I think. Maybe.
See,
which is an 8-man drop off. Jamal Williams, who got hurt for a lot of last year.
Yeah.
There was times during the season that Matt LaFleur was talking about using Jamal Williams more and splitting snaps with the 2 of them and potentially having a split backfield. And even in the playoffs, we saw Jamal Williams get a lot of work and Aaron Jones sitting on the sidelines a lot. Right. I just don't trust that.
I think I totally agree with you. I hate and this is just it's the NFL. It's what you're going to get now. You know what I mean? And
not always, especially with those top 5 guys.
I might even be fading my dude Zeke a little bit because of that.
Wow.
And I mean, if he's in the 3rd round, like he is being projected right now by Fantasy Football Calculator,
who Zeke?
Ezekiel Elliott, 304.
3rd round?
Yeah, dude, I'm on board. I'm doing it.
Then,
I did that yesterday, like all set. But anyway, I think for me, like right now, Aaron Jones is 209 according to the Fantasy Football Calculator's AD.
He's higher than Zeke. Think about that.
Yeah. So he's very high. He's going to be a guy that might even go up that list as the season approaches.
He probably will.
But you see that split back situation where they want to go with Aaron Jones for sure. And so it's like, to me, I mean, they want to go with a split back system for sure. Running back by committee, RBBC, like they're going that direction. And so to me, you're going to see Aaron Jones have these really big weeks. Now, is he the red zone running back? For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does he score 19 touchdowns again? No. So I think, and especially with Devontae Adams actually playing a full season too, there's going to be a lot more in terms of we're just over here regressing the entire Packers team right now, except for Devontae Adams. But Jones is just he can't keep it up. You know what I mean? No. The efficiency was out of this world.
I mean, let's look at the top running backs. Barkley, he's by himself.
Right.
Even guys that aren't by themselves like Zeke. I mean, he's clearly better than Tony Pollard, and he's clearly going to get more snaps.
Right.
Like way more snaps. It'll be like 80 to 20, I think.
Right.
Christian McCaffrey, obviously, he's the guy.
Yeah.
Aaron Jones, even Derrick Henry, he's clearly the guy. Like Deion Lewis is not challenging him for anything except maybe a couple catches.
Right.
Aaron Jones is the guy, but it's not an 80-20 or 90-10 for the snaps for splitting it.
Yeah.
It might be like a 60-40.
Now, I think for me, what you're also seeing is I'm trying to get my spreadsheet's way too freaking big.
I don't think Aaron Jones is going to be
half
bad.
PPR fantasy points per touch for Aaron Jones. Ready for this? You ready for this?
I don't think I am.
It was 1.2. 1.02, which is the second highest.
1.02?
Which is second highest in the league behind a man only other than Austin Eckler, who's a receiving back. So
you know why that is, though. It's big plays in the passing game.
Yeah, right. So for Aaron Jones to have a 1.2 fantasy point per touch and only have 1,500, all-purpose yards, it's insane. So it's all going to come down to how many touchdowns he scores next year.
Sure, yeah.
And he's going to regress in that category. 209? I'm okay with that.
That's not awful, yeah.
I'm okay with that.
I made it sound like I've been very against Aaron Jones, which I am, but I'm against him for being like the second running back in fantasy.
Yeah.
I'm not saying don't draft him or anything.
We're going to have to see, because I really do believe like guys like Alvin Kamara and obviously like Nick Chubb is getting drafted really
I think Kamara is going to have a better year than he did last year. But
of course. But I think it just depends on what people really believe. Like, do people believe that Jones is better than Melvin Gordon, Josh Jacobs, Leonard Fournette, Joe Mixon?
I mean, he might be.
Stuff like that. He might be. But if that's the case, then he's getting drafted as the 7th running back off the board, which is for early second round. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
Or late first. So to me, it's like, do I want to draft Aaron Jones in the first round? No.
Absolutely not.
As the offseason goes along, we'll figure out if we want to put him in the bust category. But it's going to be tough. So let's move on to the next guy. Had to put him on this list.
Let's see. I wonder who he chose for running backs that he think is going to regress. I wonder.
There's only one man. If you listen to this show, you know there's only one guy. Derrick Henry. Now, do you agree with this one?
No.
Okay, so coming out of the playoffs, everyone was
so maybe a little bit.
They ripped their pants off. There was arguments, and I want to take you back to this because I watched all the Titans playoffs games with you.
Yes.
And you said Derrick Henry might be the best running back in the NFL.
I said might, okay? That doesn't mean I said he definitively is.
I heard that, and I was like, I had to walk out of the room and come back. And
he was playing like the best running back.
He was playing very good, yeah.
He was playing like the best. That doesn't mean he is. But at the time, he was playing like the best running back in the NFL.
So I was a little bit taken back by that, and a lot of people had the same sentiment because I thought you were just like overhyping. And a lot of people had the same sentiment. Derrick Henry, by the way, 210 is where he's getting picked. So
it's the same as like
right around Aaron Jones, which is not a bad spot.
How is Zeke going in the third round?
I don't know. It's probably because Mike McCarthy, to be honest with you. Real people are watching. But Derrick Henry led the league in rushing yards. Ain't going to repeat that. So he'll regress in that category. Receiving yards, he had 206. Definitely going to regress in that category.
Well,
for sure. He only had 18 receptions last year, and one of those receptions was 78.
Okay, so the yards might. Yeah, the yards might. But like
first game of the season, he went off. You're like Derrick Henry, and he had one catch for 78 yards and a touchdown. And everyone's like, "Oh, he can catch the ball."
Don't you think though? There's some like argument to the fact that
nope. What were you gonna say? Sorry, I just needed to say no.
That Derrick Henry, like the Titans saw what they were able to do when they just gave him the ball. And that they go into this year and just feed him.
I actually don't disagree with you on that. I think they'll continue to feed him. He had 303 carries. It's not like any different from what he did the season before. Here's what to me is going to be the difference. Does everyone know what the Titans are going to do now?
That is true, yeah. But I mean, that didn't
just
stop.
Give it to Henry.
That didn't stop the Panthers.
I know that.
Or like other teams.
No, I mean
that have a great running back.
Yeah, but see, here's the difference. Are you worried about Derrick Henry in the passing game?
No, but you're not going to leave him alone either.
No, you're not even covering him.
I don't know about that.
See, most teams aren't even covering him because he's that bad. Like, it's not something you look at and go, which they can use to their advantage. But like I said, you take that 178-yard reception away. He had 17 receptions for like 140 yards, which is like an average of like, I don't know, 2 yards, 1 yard. I don't even know. So that's terrible. That's awful.
I think teams would still put a guy on him. They just don't even look to like.
To me, I don't think they even bother with it. But if he's here's the thing. This is the point I make. Football's a game of chess. If you're playing the Tennessee Titans and you see Derrick Henry on the field, you're thinking run.
Yes. No, yeah.
If you see Dion Lewis on the field or the second running back, it's pass.
Right.
So for me, Derrick Henry, he's going to get 303 touches. Anybody that gets that many touches or anybody that gets over 300 touches should be on a fantasy team as a starting running back for your team. Absolutely. But the big question is, and the big thing for me is that I don't think he's going to be as efficient as he was this year. That's why I thought he was going to be a bust. I didn't think he was going to get nearly as many touches as he did, just because 300 rushes is a lot of rushes. But not only that, I didn't think he was going to reach 5.4 yards per touch, and that's or 4.7
So where did he
yards
finish?
per carry.
Fifth, fourth?
No, he finished. Let me just look. Hold on, through 16
Because
weeks.
in week 16 he had
Derrick Henry
like 40 points. So.
Where are you, Derek? There he is. He finished 6th.
So yeah, like in week 16 he had 40 points. I think he finished 3rd in that.
I think the big thing is he was number 2 in the NFL in touchdowns, 18 of them. So does that change in terms of next year? I don't know. Maybe he gets 15. Small regression.
Yeah, he'll still get a lot.
I just don't think he's going to be as good. Now I'm not saying he's going to be a bust. Like last year, I came out straight and I was like he was going to be a bust. Yeah. I think he's going to be RB9, RB10, RB11, RB12 in that category.
That's not awful. I was thinking like RB7, RB8.
Just because when you looked at Derrick Henry during the regular season, right, he was a guy that, because in those playoff games, he's like 200 yards, whatever. But he was a guy that got 80 yards a game, roughly, 70, 80 yards a game on the ground generally. Maybe sometimes he'd catch a pass and run for 3 yards. But so he would get 70 to 80 yards, and then it just all depended on the touchdowns. And it's the same situation with Mark Ingram. You know what I mean? I don't know if we talk about him a little bit later, but we do not. Wow, I didn't put him on this list. But anyway, his big thing was eight total. You know, like he would get 8 total fantasy points in a game, and then if he cracked the touchdown threshold once, he had 15 fantasy points. He had a good week. Cracked it again, he would have 24 fantasy points. You know what I mean? Like, I really think that he's going to get, he's going to regress a little bit in the yardage category, but it's all going to come down to whether he scores touchdowns. I don't think he's going to score as many touchdowns as he normally did. You also have to realize, hey, who's the quarterback going to be?
So I was going to ask you this because I am curious. What if it's Tannehill, you'd probably like same, right? You would say he's finishing like 10th.
I still haven't decided if Tannehill's going to be good next year or not, so I have no idea. I really don't know.
What if they get Brady?
If Tannehill can't move the ball like he did in Miami, like where he just was bad, if he goes back to being bad next year,
it hurts Henry.
It hurts Henry a lot.
What about if they get Brady?
If they get Brady, I mean, maybe.
Does that help or hurt? I mean, I think it helps. I don't know about how much. Like, I don't think
it's the same. I think it's not any different.
I think it only helps because
I honest to God think adding Tom Brady literally
who would you rather have
anything for the Titans.
So
it's the same thing.
Here's what I'll say. I actually agree with you for the most part, but what I'll say the difference between Tannehill and Brady is, even at this point in their careers, is Brady's going to see a defense and be like, oh, if we run it here, Henry's going to get an 80-yard run, so he's going to audible and change the play. Yeah. So I do think it'll help Henry in that sense, but by him actually, like his actual play, I don't know if it'll make too much of a difference.
I think he's going to slip, but that's, me, my Derrick Henry hatred.
Okay.
Number 3 on this list is Chris Carson. Now, I toiled with this, but you just threw him right on the list.
I did.
And I was like, wow, dude, why don't we just slow your freaking
First of all,
roll?
we need 3 guys. So
that's true. So Chris Carson last year, he had a very good season.
He was solid, 9th.
I think for I just want to go by averages because he did miss a lot of time. He finished as who the heck is Wes Hills? 5th string running back for the Detroit Lions. Good for him. Chris Carson was 14 fantasy points a game, which was in the ballpark of like an RB8.
Yeah, roughly. So with Carson, like that's a good season. I don't think he's gonna be an RB1 again. The reason that this one I could be wrong with. Like next year I could see Carson also finishing it the exact same as he did this past year. Yeah. As like the RB8. But I think that he is coming off. We talked about it in our last show. He's in the news with his injury. Yeah. He has a hip injury. He is supposed to play in week 1, but a hip injury for a running back is not good. Right. They have Rashad Penny on that team, who they like a lot. And I think they're going to use him more. Okay. Like they did in spurts last year. And this year, I think they're going to fully commit to like I hate to say it, but the dual running backs.
Yeah.
The RBBC.
Ugh.
I do. I think they're going to do it. And with Carson,
I don't think what's his name wants to though.
Pete Carroll.
Yeah.
Well, so I don't think so they won't do it like most teams where both guys get like 12 carries or whatever. I think what they'll do is like a week to week they'll switch up who gets more carries,
right?
Which would stink for fantasy owners. So I could easily see that as well. Right. And with Carson's injuries, he's an injury away from Penny just taking that job.
Oh, I'll say he's a fumble away.
He's a fumble away. He's an injury away.
Whatever, man.
I think Carson. This one is tricky because I do think Carson, if he stays healthy, like there is a chance that he is the same player as he was last year.
Here's the other thing that you have to consider too. He's not really super involved in the passing game. He had 37 receptions on 46 targets, which is not bad. It's not great, but he had 1,400 total yards last season. How many games did he miss?
It's like 3, I think.
So he had about 17 receiving yards a game and 82 rushing yards. Rushing yards a game, which is right around 90 to 100 yards a game. So if that's the case, you're getting 10 fantasy points there. The big thing is that he was number 10 in touchdowns, and he only had 9 touchdowns, 2.9% touchdown rate, which is not good.
No.
And
that's not bad, but not for an RB1.
Yeah. So I think for me, when you look at him next year, if he does get the same amount of opportunities, because he had 278 carries and 37 catches, so he had over 300 touches.
Yeah.
So if he touches the ball over 300 times again going into next season, gets 1,500 yards, and then maybe adds 6 or 7 more touchdowns, he could actually be a solid RB1. The question is, like you said, does he continue to own that job and take it away from Penny? And I think what we all forget is how good Rashad Penny was in the absence of Chris Carson, and even when they were together.
I know,
So
exactly.
I think that showed them something, and you're right. If he had, I can't remember how many. Let me see if I can see how many fumbles he had last year.
He had a lot, especially in the beginning of the season.
But he had a lot, especially in the beginning of the season, and they were very much ready to, like, you thought it was crazy, but they were very much ready.
Yeah, to go to Penny.
To go to Penny full time. So I think you're not wrong. If they go to Penny, that's going to be a horrible draft investment. Horrible.
Oh, for drafting Chris Carson?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I know.
So Chris Carson right now is getting drafted at 311.
Yeah, see, like imagine you draft him at 311 and then
and then he just
week 2 Penny's
the now guy. He's in the same spot as he was last year, and so for a guy that spent most of the season as a mid to high end RB1, and then obviously to fall off and get hurt, and a lot of different stuff happened for Chris Carson. It does make you think, like, is he worth the investment in the 3rd round? You know what I mean? Like, right. I don't know. It's tough. Like, because if you draft him in the 3rd round and then he just completely poops himself and Penny takes over, then you're sitting there looking at a David Johnson situation where, you get a guy who's completely worthless for most of the season.
Yeah.
So I just don't know. To me, I agree and disagree with you at the same time because I'm confused. I don't know what's going to happen with Chris Carson.
Fair enough.
Let's move on to the wide receivers. Chris Godwin is the first one on our list. I love you, Chris Godwin. Do I think he's going to still have, he's probably going to score, to me, I think, slightly less fantasy points as he did last year. So, he scored 233 last year. I think he scores somewhere in the ballpark of, I want to say, let's go by averages because he only played in 14 games. But I think he'll average more around 14 fantasy points per game than 17,
Yeah.
So if that's the case, he's more like a low-end wide receiver 1 than a high-end wide receiver,
Right.
1.
I mean, I think Godwin had a fantastic year last year. They threw the ball a lot.
Yeah, they always do.
A lot. Well, so if Rivers signs the Buccaneers, you think they're going to throw the ball that much?
Hells to the no.
I don't think so.
What does that mean? Hells to the no.
I don't know. I've heard it many times, but I'd be real with you.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, Chris Godwin finishing number 2 though. I think he's good, and he had a real breakout year.
Yeah.
Is he number 2?
No.
In fantasy, Devontae Adams plays a full season. DeAndre Hopkins catches a few more touchdowns and goes back to DeAndre Hopkins. Juju Smith-Schuster maybe comes back, and I mean, it depends on who his quarterback is, but has a full season, healthy season with a new quarterback that isn't Mason Rudolph. There's a lot of guys that.
Right.
Oh, there's the timer.
Oh, man, I thought I had it on mute.
You do that every time.
That basically means that we're over 25 minutes. Continue.
Oh, yikes. I don't even remember what I was saying. But there is a lot of receivers that could hop above Chris Godwin. I think he'll be top 10 for sure. If Winston stays, then I even think he might even have a chance to stay in the top 5. Like maybe like 5th. Like low end of top 5. But
yeah.
But that's a big if because
So,
I don't think Winston is staying. But
right now, Godwin is going as the 7th to 9th wide receiver off the board.
that's fine. I'm taking him there
At 201.
because I think he'll be like 5 to 10.
I don't know why wide receivers are getting drafted so high.
201 and he's
Now, Michael Thomas 104, DeAndre Hopkins 107, Adams 109, Juju 110.
Juju's still that high.
Evans and Hill are tied at 111.
Forgot about Hill.
And Odell's 112 and Julio's 112.
So Odell and Juju should not.
This
be
is
that
obviously going to change it. But
yeah.
I think Godwin, as the season approaches, is probably going to get drafted more in the 5th or 6th, which is a second round wide receiver, which I'm not on board with. I just can't. I can't get on that bandwagon. I know he's probably going to get more targets and opportunity than
Right.
Mike Evans, but I just can't. I don't know. I just can't jump on the train. I think he's gonna. I agree with you. I think he's gonna regress. I don't think he's undraftable. Like I said.
Oh gosh, no.
Yeah, he's
especially if he's the 8th receiver
like I
off
said,
the
this
board
is
or
not
whatever
busts, but he had
finishing number 2 among wide receivers.
See, now my biggest thing is that, and we've talked about this before, wide receivers have to have 150, 160 targets in order to get into that top 3 range.
Yep.
And he had 119 last year. I don't think that increases. I actually think it probably, if it does, it's like 125.
Yeah.
I think it stays right around the same. If that's the case, you're going to see Chris Godwin fall down a little bit in terms of where he finishes. I think it's probably an 8 to 12 wide receiver finish for him. Is where we're safe to.
You think it's gonna be 8 to 12?
Yeah, it's a safe range to put him.
I think if Winston comes back, he'll be 5 to 10.
Yeah.
And then if Phillip Rivers or somebody signs there, it'll be like 8 to 12.
Yeah. So I agree with you. I love you, Chris Godwin, but you're going to regress.
Yes.
Kenny Golladay is the next guy on our list. We saw a lot of weird crap with Kenny Golladay last year.
I know he was so inconsistent.
It was like good week, bad week, good week, bad week, and when he was good, Marvin Jones was bad, and when he was bad, Marvin Jones was good. Yeah. So Golladay had an up and down season. His inconsistency is definitely there. Right now he's going as the 12th wide receiver off the board at 207, which is a very solid
taking him
area.
there. Yeah, 12th.
Yeah, I would definitely take him there. But
so he finishes number 5, correct?
Yeah.
I don't see him finishing in the top 5 this year unless Matt Stafford has like an MVP season.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, he was playing very well last year.
Now, we talked about a couple months ago. I mean, not a couple months ago, but before when we were talking about Kenny Golladay last season, that we definitely believe he could probably be a high-level asset this year. But there's also the other side of it that you have to look at, and there's the regression category. He played in all 16 games and only had 116 targets.
Right. So you could make the argument, though, that's because he had 3 different quarterbacks. I would like to know what it was through the first, 5 weeks. Whenever Stafford played.
You want me to pull that stat?
No, do not. Don't do that. That's going to take too much effort.
I'll do some tricks for you.
But so what my thing with Kenny Golladay is, I think kind of what I mentioned with Godwin, there's a lot of receivers that didn't have good years or were injured or whatnot that I think will finish in the top 5, which will automatically bump him back a few spots.
Yeah.
And then plus, I think you're going to call me crazy on this one, but I think the Hawk is going to get more involved in the offense.
Okay.
Maybe take some targets. Maybe take some not a lot, but
yeah. I think he stays
more just
right.
There's a lot of weapons in that offense. They throw to the running back sometimes.
Yeah.
Marvin Jones is obviously still there. So I do think Kenny Golladay will be good. Maybe 10.
Yeah.
I think he'll finish around 10.
I agree with you. I think he'll probably finish with 120 targets and finish in that 8 to 12 range.
Similar to what he did this past year, to be honest.
Right.
He'll have good weeks, bad weeks.
Yeah. So I don't disagree with you there. Let's talk about our final wide receiver and then wrap up the show.
Sure.
Cooper Kupp. Now, this guy, he had a season. I just typed in Amari Cooper's name on our little search engine here, and that's not what I wanted.
You wanted a Cooper Kupp.
But I think for me, Cooper Kupp had a very good season last year. He finished, I think, as the wide receiver 6. If you calculate it through all 17, he finished as like a top 3 wide receiver. So
yeah,
he was very, very good last year. At certain points, he was the wide receiver 1, and then other times he was just a complete garbage can. So I think it's tough for me with this guy because we both love him.
Correct. Last year I was so on the Cooper Kupp train.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous, and everybody laughed at me, but I was very high on the train.
So he is going to get between 130 and 140 targets. I do believe that. He had 134 last year. So I think he could be a little higher than Chris Godwin, Kenny Golladay, and finish not too far off from where he was. But I do think that offense was terrible. If they're planning on moving on from Todd Gurley, that means they're kind of and I think Andrew Whitworth is retiring. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, I think isn't he already retired?
I don't know. He came back last year.
Here's my problem with Cooper Kupp, who again last year was my favorite guy. Love Cooper Kupp. I still love him as a player. I love Cooper Kupp. All that stuff.
Yeah.
They might be adding a tight end. They started using tight ends more. Brandon Cooks missed he was healthy for a lot of games. It didn't matter, but he still missed a lot of time.
Right.
There's a lot of weapons in that offense that is starting to struggle. Like, let's be real. They were mediocre last year.
Right.
They might have a bounce back year, but, I mean, how good is Jared Goff to really make them an elite offense?
Yeah.
So, for me, I still love Cooper Kupp, but I just think there's too many weapons, too many factors, which will make him not be a top 5. Or what did he finish? Number 3?
Number 3 in 17 weeks.
So yeah, I don't see him finishing in the top 3 at all. And then again, what I've said with the other 2 guys, the amount of receivers that didn't play full seasons, or
right,
just had down or just had down years.
Yeah, that
will slide into the top 5. That I think.
Yeah, so. I agree. I definitely agree. He didn't get as much yardage, but that's expected from a slot receiver. Yeah. He had 10 total touchdowns, which is very good. So he's a talented wide receiver.
Again, I think he's in the same boat as Godwin and.
Now I think he probably ends in that 8 to 12 range.
Yeah.
There's a chance that Cooper Kupp, the position that he plays, is very physical. So
that too.
When getting pounded
injury
by
history as well,
240-pound
correct
linebackers, it gets difficult. So I think you could see maybe an injury or 2 for him as well, which would also push him down the board. So he is going 210, which is not a spot where I hate taking him. But
how many receivers are ahead of him?
13.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll take him.
For sure would take him. Like guys like Cortland Sutton, DJ Moore getting taken ahead of him. So that's a little bit.
Yeah.
crazy.
No, I would. Take
but anyway,
Kupp.
So I definitely like Cooper Kupp going into next season, but that top 3 finish through 17 weeks, or that top 5 finish through 16 games or 16 weeks. I'm sorry, is definitely worth it. I don't know. It's possible for him to regress, and not significantly, but enough for people to feel it at the end of next season.
Right, like they'll just see that he finished 3rd, and then see that he finished 8th this next year, and be like, "Whoa, what?"
Yeah, so it should be interesting to see what happens, but all these guys,
I'd be willing to draft.
I like all. Literally, that's kind of where I'm at. Is like I literally would be willing to draft every single one of them.
Right. No, I think all these guys I'd definitely take.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
That'll do it for the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. Don't forget to check out our website at thefantasychampions.com. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram, and we'll talk to you on Tuesday, Fantasy Champs.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Champions Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes and YouTube, and follow us on Twitter at TheFFChamps.